live. Give me. Okay, it looks like we're live. If I go to my main. Okay, we're live. Okay, it looks like we're live. Oh, yeah, putting this on pause, bringing up the comments. Okay, let's see this. How's everyone doing today? Live soon, Heck Tech FPV. Okay, we are live. I've got it on slow mode just because no moderator, and I want to make sure I don't lose any of the comments. Now let me just make sure that I can see. Here we go. All the way to the bottom. Yeah, the dogs are definitely up here. Unemployed Mario Yamasaki. Okay, this is cool. While we're getting started, let's just say 1, 2, 3. Oh, here he is, number one. Let's just say hello, hello. Booyah. Oh, if everyone could go share this link on Twitter, Facebook, wherever, maybe we can bring in some more people, and we'll give a few minutes just to let everybody come in. Prank Kanadiga from India. Amazing. How you doing? Let's see what else. I'm somehow watching you open the middle of the woods right open now. I'm somehow watching you open the middle of the woods right now. in the open middle of the woods. Kyle, it's good that you have internet there. I tell you, down in the townships where my mother-in-law lives, the internet is sometimes so weak that I can't even upload a movie. It takes like 8 hours. We got Mark Decker from the Netherlands, DSLR Dave. DSLR Dave, by the way, is the guy that does all of my good thumbnails. Every now and again, you'll notice a crappy thumbnail. That's one that I've done because I decided to put out a video and didn't want to bother DSLR Dave late at night, so I put together my own thumbnail. But DSLR Dave does my awesome thumbnails. They're phenomenal. Nifty 50s, who has a Viva Frei logo, which means that you are a member. Okay, let's start everything off from the beginning here. Members, I haven't done the members only live stream. And for those of you who don't know what members only live stream is, or members only, once you hit 50,000 subscribers on YouTube, people can become members of your channel. And they sponsor you for like $5 a month. And they get certain privileges. And one of the privileges I'm supposed to do is a live stream for members only, which I haven't done yet. Just because there were 3 members and I couldn't get a time to do it. It's basically going to be like a conference call, but we're going to do it, and I do apologize. But Nifty 50s, thank you very much. Natalie Buzoglu, hello, hello. YouTube user 8123ABC from Connecticut. This is so cool. What do members get? A live stream that is dedicated specifically to members. I'm going to actually start including, unless the members don't want, list of members at the end of my videos, just as just to show thank you and out of gratitude, because it helps me, you know, continue doing what I'm doing here. Mark Decker says, I was wondering who does the thumbnails. Yeah, DSLR Dave, check him out. I believe he does them for other people if you're interested. Don Draper's Greatest Memes. Get some good deals on my Amazon storefront. Don Draper is also a Viva Frei member. Hey, Viva Frei, 0 hour, do I chess? I used to have an online chess problem where I used to play more than I should have. But no, I do play chess. I haven't played in a long time. Chris Daniel from Massachusetts. Hello, Chris. Let me see if I'm properly positioned. How many are we at here? Let's see. Okay. First things first. Let me just see how many people we have here. Do we wait a little more to let some people come in? Okay, I can't see how many people we have. It doesn't really matter. Caden Young saw Endgame. Caden, don't spoil it for other people. I couldn't care less. Okay, so DSLR Dave says he does thumbnails for others. Just DM or private message, direct message. He's amazing. He's amazing. And it really gives an edge, or at least a distinctive look to the channel above and beyond the very haphazard thumbnails I was doing for myself. Van Halen or Satriani? I don't know if that question is directed at me. All right, before we get into the live stream issues that we set aside, if anybody hasn't seen this whole format was sort of thankfully suggested to me by someone who I've become friends with over YouTube. And the idea is to do the law vlogs during the week, one vlog that is not law related on the weekend, which seems to have zero interest to the rest of the world, but whatever, I love doing it. And then the live stream where we just address any questions that people might have had about the law vlogs, and we can actually discuss some developments, because the amazing thing about the internet is the collective wisdom and knowledge of the internet. Like, I put up the video on Julian Assange and, you know, talking about the indictment, and you get people from all over the place with everyone, you know, collectively more knowledge and individually more knowledge. You get people who have a great deal more specific knowledge in matters that clarify things that I can't necessarily discover on my own, and it's just amazing. 45 watching, okay, that's pretty good. So let's, okay, we're not going to give a few more minutes to get people coming in, but if everyone, you know, notify and share and whatever, I think we've been going for 5 minutes, so that's enough time. I hope this is visible. I can't see my screen right now. Nothing in these videos is going to be legal advice, period. So I will discuss these things. I've been getting a lot of like emails asking specific questions. Can I deal with certain topics specifically? And people, you know, asking me is, you know, legal questions. And my email response is not an automated one. It's just going to be the same way for the most part. I can't really make specific videos on specific requests only because I don't want anybody construing anything I say as specific targeted legal advice to them, where I give legal advice, or someone thinks I've given them legal advice in another jurisdiction and, you know, they get into trouble because I only know Quebec law, and I wouldn't even give internet advice to Quebec people, even though I know the jurisdiction and know the law. The thing about law is like one small fact. You're visible, Lee McCormick, thank you. One small fact can change everything. And before any lawyer gives any sort of formal opinion, they have to make sure they understand all the facts, and that requires fact gathering. You can't do it based on a question by email. So don't be offended if my response is always going to be the same. I can't give you legal advice. If I talk about something, it's going to be in general terms with the caveat, if you need legal advice, go see a lawyer. Is the failed coup against Trump sedition or conspiracy? I'm not going to answer that question, but there is the difference between sedition and conspiracy is very interesting. But no, look, I'm not even to comment on the substance of that question. The Mueller report was very interesting. It's very interesting just in terms of the way both sides are reading it, where I think it was $35 million 2 years later. It doesn't seem to have changed anything from one side or the other. It's from a totally outside perspective, from a Canadian perspective, it's interesting to see politics play out, not just in the US, because it's not unique to the US, but it's interesting to see politics play out in another country where you are not vested in it to the point where you can sort of maybe see it from a distance. So I'm saying this isn't legal advice. John Brown TV, not legal advice. 51 people watching. I feel so special. Awesome. Zoltan Bose. Hello, hello. It reminded me of Nixon. It's funny. So I studied American history, at least took a few courses in university. And I remember, the one thing I remember about Nixon is when he resigned, his issue was, Etienne Champonet says, I miss fishing with you. Fishing is coming. The season is coming. When Nixon resigned, I remember just one thing the teacher saying, that Nixon didn't understand why people hated him. And it's like the curse of being president. It's the curse of being prime minister. It's the curse of being in a position where you have to make decisions, and you know, no matter how good your intentions, you are going to anger 50% of the people, and you're going to please 50% of the people. And you know that no matter what decision you make, you are going to be angering some people. And it's like, it's the curse, and it's the curse of being president, being prime minister. Nifty 50s. What about the cooking? We're going to do one non-law related video a week, and it's usually going to be on the weekend. And I have a good cooking video coming up, because for those of you who are new to the channel, we haven't had a kitchen in about a month and let's say 5 weeks. And so we've been doing all of our meals, 5 people living out of a living room, cooking meals in a toaster and a microwave. And I'm going to make a compilation of our greatest recipes for cooking in a toaster. Okay. Anyways, that video is coming soon, but I have not yet shot the content, let alone edited the content. So a good cooking video is coming soon. Nick Bedard says, Viva, answer this question, I'll become a member. Do you watch Better Call Saul? If not, why? If so, what are your thoughts, favorite scene? I have watched Better Call Saul. We don't get HBO at my house, so we don't watch. Is it on? I hope it's on HBO. Is it on HBO or Netflix? We've watched a few seasons. It was great. I love Bill Odenkirk. But the reality is I don't have enough spare time to dedicate, to invest in another series. We did Breaking Bad, we did Dexter, and then after that, nothing has gotten me hooked to the point where I will stay up an hour later to watch. But yeah, I love, Better Call Saul was fantastic, and it was great. Let's see if I can get this. I can't wait to use all this legal advice to make important legal decisions. The Green Oak, that I don't know how to read sarcasm or humor on the internet, but I'm reading sarcasm and humor in that. Boozaglu says, oh my God, yes, I want living room cooking tips. toaster cooking tips. The microwave, I only have my eggs in it, but okay, we got Matt Curley, who's got a Viva Frei member. Also, Pat, I'd like the decorative sticks next to the fireplace, and I'll take the rest of the account or gift certificate. Jeremy Anthony's in the house, Slipping Jimmy. New member. Oh, that is so cool. I didn't know that we can actually see this. Nick, thank you very much, Nick. This is so cool. Okay. Well, I'm speechless because I've never actually seen a new member become a member in real time. So shall we get into the legal questions? Do you want to deal with one first? Nick Bedell, thank you very much. That's so cool. Let's do the one that I think I'm going to have the least to talk about. Nick, I will keep creating so long as I can and so long as it makes me feel happy to do. I was always reluctant to do I'm not doing politics now, but I was even reluctant to touch contemporary stuff because everything is political, and even being non-political is political, and I'm not going to turn into a political channel. I just noticed, based on engagement from the videos I've been putting up for the last, call it a year, the law vlogs get engagement, but which is important to me, not in terms of the numbers, but just in terms of actually corresponding to a demand or a need or a desire out there that people want to understand things. And by the looks of it, there's Legal Eagle, who does a great job dealing with legal topics, but there's not that much in terms of people with legal training or lawyers trying to explain things in a non-offensive, non-partisan, non-in-your-face, non-sensational manner. So that's what I'm going to try to do. People seem to love it, and I'm going to keep doing it if I can. Free legal advice, DB. No, there is no such thing as free legal advice, and be weary of free legal advice. I think I mentioned this in one of my previous videos, but 80% of ethical complaints to the bar come from family advice or advice from one family member to another family member or to a friend. Free advice always ends in trouble. Okay, let's see. We got KC Auto Doctor. Could becoming a member on here be mistakenly considered a retainer for your legal representation? Is that a subject you have ever thought about? No, I have never thought about that. I'm never going to, because I don't think it's a realistic expectation. Nor could becoming a member be considered to take cooking classes for me, for anyone who's been watching. Yeah, and DSLR, the engagement on the law vlogs it's surprising even to me, because it goes to show that there are people out there who are looking for this, call it not objective, but just call it non-sensationalized, non-hyper-partisan, hyper-media stylized breakdown of what's going on. And I think I can do it. I think I can do it, and people seem to like it. Tyler C says, I'm not a lawyer, but I play one on TV, so I can give you all the legal advice you need. And he stated Best Western. Okay, so let's start with the first topic, where there's not much more to talk about, which was the Article 17 clearing the European Parliament, and people freaking out about it, and it causing panic on the web. Okay, you know what? I said I was going to deal with one topic, then get to questions, because someone said that when I deal with questions in the middle of a subject, it gets too confusing, and they were 100% right. Article 7 has cleared the European Union. Now every European Union country has 2 years to implement, call it national law, to reflect the terms of the EUCD, the Article 17, which was the old Article 13, which is what they called the upload filter article. But basically, I mean, everyone probably knows this by now, but it's going to be holding the platforms liable, equally liable and solidarily liable for copyright infringement for content uploaded by users. Prior to, YouTube could not be held liable if an uploader, uploaded an illegal version of a movie or copyrighted music and put it in their own videos. Then it was up to the copyright holder to go after the uploader directly. Now, under the EUCD provision, which is going to become law, unless something radical happens within the next 2 years, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter can be held liably. What's the word I'm looking for? Jointly, solidarily liable for copyright infringement. The idea now is that all these big platforms are going to have to implement these upload filters, which are going to block. We're going to get to FUCT later, Nifty 50s. The FUCT. Sorry. So all of these big platforms are going to have to implement upload filters, which are going to block at the upload stage content that is copyright infringement, potentially, regardless of whether or not it could otherwise constitute fair use. The bigger concern is that these smaller platforms, like locally hosted websites, are not going to have the finances or the pockets to implement upload filters, so they're going to shut down, or they're just not going to do what they do in the European Union. That's one concern, is that there's going to be only these big entities that are going to be able to handle the requirements under the EUCD. The other part is that it's going to block fair use. It's going to incidentally block stuff that might have incidental copyright infringement, like music in the background, a trademark in the background, and whatever. And so it's going to kill creativity, or even, you know, suppress it entirely. The other concern is that it might treat shooting things in public arenas as copyrighted material, depending on what's in the background, and thus newsworthy events might get stripped from the internet because they contain copyrighted material and are blocked at the upload stage. So far, there's no answers to any of this. YouTube. Oh, by the way, if anyone can tweet Susan Wojcicki and YouTube and just ask them what they're going to do concretely. I haven't gotten a response to my tweets, and I don't know, but there's nothing really more to discuss about Article 17. And interesting is that there's nothing in the news for the last 2 weeks about it. So no news on that. So Sway Ocean says, so what you're saying is Article 17 is stupid trash written by idiots. Let's rephrase that in a non-controversial way. It can be construed as a way of restricting potentially. It's a way to control information on the one hand. On the other hand, it is a way to prevent copyright infringement. I mean, I can see the need for it. Like for the amount of content I have on YouTube, I've seen it in other people's compilations. I've seen my content in meme reviews, or not PewDiePie's meme reviews, but I've seen it in other people's videos. And the argument is always, well, it's fair use because they're doing commentary or they're doing this and that. The reality is there is a lot of copyright abuse on YouTube. And I discussed it with PewDiePie because he does the meme review, and the idea is, well, it's a commentary, it's a review, therefore it's fair use. But one of the provisions, or one of the requirements for fair use, at least for editorial or for educational purposes, you have to use as little as possible to make your point. And oftentimes, you know, there's no need to watch the original once you've seen the review or the commentary. And that doesn't create traffic for the original copyrighted material. It sucks traffic away from it. And that's where it no longer qualifies as fair use. Fair use, typically, you know, the standard considered by the courts are, is it siphoning off traffic or is it generating traffic too? And by and large, a lot of the copyright infringement on YouTube, you never have to go watch the original once you've seen the commentary, or once you've seen the montage, and it kills creativity, and it sort of deprives people of their fruits of their labor. But the flip side is this Article 17 of the EUCD it looks like it's going to change the game a little bit in terms of the upload filters and what might get blocked. It's going to force content creators to stop using other people's content in their content. Okay, that's not the end of the world. The problem is going to be where it gets abused for, let's say, shooting in public arenas, or shooting at sporting events, or other events where there could be other ulterior motives for pulling the information from the internet, or for claiming copyright. And I did deal with that in the video. If you haven't seen the video on Article 17, I've done 3 of them now, but 2 of them were coupled with other news at the time, and 1 of them was dedicated. Okay, so let's see what we got here. The option to become a member of your channel is not offered to me, Lee McCormick. Yeah, it's just, I don't know how that works anyhow, but don't worry about it. I'm going to redo my merch because I ordered a Teespring mug myself at Christmas, or my wife ordered it for me. I haven't gotten it yet. So I don't, Teespring and DSLR Dave got his mug, and it seems to have been whitewashed in the washing machine. So I'm going to figure out another system. Teespring is too expensive. I haven't even gotten it yet, and doesn't seem to be particularly high quality. So I'm going to figure out merch. So don't worry about becoming a member. It's not the end of the world at all. Dick Bowen says, I'm more worried about them pinching people over noise. Okay, that might mean incidental copyright. I might have missed some stuff before that. Okay, let's see if I missed any questions. Am I going to do any more Flat Earth interview? What was your biggest takeaway from the interview? I'm probably not going to do any more Flat Earth interviews because I thought, well, first of all, I've answered the questions that I had for myself, and it was an interesting thing. What surprised me about the interview is what surprised me not about the interview, but about the comments afterwards is I can dissociate myself from the issues in a personal sense, just because as a lawyer, you know, you sort of get used to looking at a file as a file and not having a vested interest in a personal interest in one side or the other. People are very emotional about it one way or the other, and it's interesting. But I had the closure that I needed in terms of understanding the arguments, regardless of the fact that I don't necessarily agree with them. But it was an interesting experience. What's my favorite court case? This is Tyler C. What's my favorite court case in Canada or the U.S.? Okay, I have one reflexive answer, but I don't want to give you the full answer because I'm going to do a video on it. But the McDonald's hot coffee case, I did a public speaking competition on. That is not my, I mean, my favorite. It's the one that I love the most, and that reflexively comes to mind when dealing about the nuances of what appears to be ridiculous cases on their face, because everything is nuanced. Will Article 17 be different for different countries or counties? Mark Decker. Well, that's the other issue about Article 17 is right now it's a European issue, or it's a European thing. The question is, like, you know, when it comes over to Canada or when it comes over to the US, when the internet is regulated to the point where information can be suppressed not out of legitimate copyright needs or interests, but for ulterior motives. Let's say that. Viva, this is Nick Badal says, Viva, can you do the Air Canada French language case? Oh, so interesting thing. I am going to do something on the French language laws in Quebec, because for those of you who don't know, we have a Bill 101, which it's called the Charter Protecting the French Language, and it has some provisions which make doing business in Quebec particularly interesting. And I'm dealing with this in a file that I'm working on as a lawyer. And it's an interesting subject that a lot of people don't really appreciate. Language laws in Quebec, that you have to have French and English on all packaging, or French and other on all packaging. French has to be what we call nettement prédominant on signage. It's very interesting. So anyways, I'm going to do a video on the French language laws sooner than later, but you know, everything takes time. Let's see here. Okay, Matt Curley says, the public don't know the actual events of McD's coffee suit. So Matt Curley, Viva Frei member, booyah. The public don't know. This is the reality also, is the media sensationalizes or oversimplifies a lot of what needs to be reported. And this is not an attack of intentions. It's just a matter of fact, because there's only so much time in a show to present the facts. There's only so much detail that people viewing are going to be interested in. And so there's a certain oversimplification or lack of depth on the details that enables people's understanding, but sometimes it overly simplifies it. The McDonald's case is the perfect one, and I'm doing that I'm doing this week, so stay tuned. Let's see what Dick Bowen says. I'm more worried about the segmentation that countries like China have done and Russia is currently planning to do, locking their people out of the World Wide Web. The internet is an amazing thing because it frees up information to everybody regardless. When the governments begin controlling what information is accessible in certain countries, sunlight is the greatest disinfectant. And so when it happens, it's not a good thing. When are we getting another fishing video? Tyler C. The ice has just melted, so I'm planning to do another fishing video, and I have a buddy who I did a weekend vlog at his place a little while ago that I have yet to edit, who's going to take me fishing. So sooner than later. Sierra LVX, good morning. It's 12:23, unless you're West Coast. Sierra, how you doing? Okay, so that was Article 17. There hasn't been much developments in that. Julian Assange, I'm not going to get into the details of the videos I've done because I've done a few of them. The interesting information that people posted in the comment section, which allowed me to have a better understanding, and they were very interesting comments. In the video that I did breaking down the indictment and going over extradition laws to some extent and why the indictment may have been on the charges that were brought in the indictment, which were conspiracy to access a computer as opposed to espionage or publishing classified information. Someone in the comment section had a very interesting analysis, interpretation comment, which was there have been a number of news outlets that have published classified information. And so if they were going to charge Julian Assange or indict him on that aspect of having published classified information, then there would be an issue about potentially having to indict other mainstream news outlets or big news outlets or just, you know, news computer, presumably because most journalists will not conspire to get passwords to access the information, although some journalists will publish classified information in their reporting, as has been done. Pretty sure the New York Times did it. I'm pretty sure Washington Post has done it. So that was one interesting explanation as to why the indictment would have been on that lesser charge as opposed to what could have potentially been a greater charge. Let me see if I missed anything here. Okay, Sierra's on the West Coast, so it's still morning there. Okay, so now before I get into the other questions, so that was one interpretation or one explanation as to why the charges that were brought against Julian were the ones that were brought. I, in the video, contemplated whether or not the statute of limitations had expired, or whether or not the crime for which he had been indicted had lapsed in terms of a 5-year statute of limitations. An American lawyer, or I think it was an American lawyer, mentioned the concept of tolling, which is where the suspension of prescription can occur where someone is trying to evade justice. And so the idea being that the second Julian Assange took refuge in the Ecuadorian embassy to avoid justice, the 5-year statute of limitations is sort of paused and doesn't run for the length of the time that he was hiding in the Ecuador or taking refuge in the Ecuadorian embassy. So I said I might do a video on tolling because we have a similar concept in Canadian law where you can suspend prescription. But so that was another interesting thing that came up with the Julian Assange video in the week after publishing the video, where you just realize the collective knowledge of the internet is a beautiful thing. Let's see here. Okay, I just read alter, avoid, alter. I'm just reading some of the comments, which I may not read all of them because there's a lot. Tyler says, I know you've done a video on it. Could I sum up my, could I sum up my thoughts on the Smollett debacle? The Smollett one is the one where I actually have the most to say, so we'll get to that at the end. Dogs. But the interesting thing about Assange is he's got an extradition hearing, I believe, in early May. But there's been nothing in the news for the last. Bernie, there's been nothing in the news for the last week and a half, 2 weeks, which is interesting in and of itself. Let's see here. Streeter. Stretcher says, I was led to believe the McDonald's hot coffee suit was an orchestrated distraction paid for by McD's, as it had come out their beef was poisoned. I had never heard that, but I will certainly look into that when I do my video on it. Dick Bowen says their understanding of clearance and so on is wrong. My reasoning behind stating as such. Okay, so there's a discussion going on here. Anyone in London gather outside Westminster Magistrates Court on May 2nd to show your support to Assange. Viva, this is Nick. Am I going to apply for an attorney general position in the federal government? It's not on the chart for now. Never say never, but right now, I've just and this is another announcement I've been meaning to make for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month. I've become an accredited mediator, and I sort of want to focus my energies on resolving conflict and not participating in it, which is going to bring us to the Smollett case and what's going on there, because it's amazing. The FUCT. Let's talk about the FUCT, because we were just in Washington. And Washington, how many people have been to Washington? If everyone can hit like a quick Y, and we'll see. Okay, this is an interesting question. I'm Dope says, how can personal political views from a lawyer not become a bias when practicing? People can have opinions without it affecting their judgment and their interpretation. Okay, we got a lot of whys. So, but the reality is everybody's bias sort of influences them to some extent. If you are aware of your bias and you are taking it into consideration when looking at things, you can never get rid of it, because everybody has their personal opinions. But if you are sufficiently aware of it, you can sort of be aware of whether or not it's impacting your assessment of what's going on. Because we got like 50% yes, 50% no have been to Washington. Washington is like Las Vegas meets the Egyptian pyramids, or let's just say Las Vegas meets Egyptian monuments. It's flabbergasting. It's the buildings are huge, and it feels like you're sort of in the same artificially manufactured clean setting as Las Vegas, except Las Vegas buildings look like a cardboard backdrop. Washington's buildings look like mansions. They look heavy to look at. Like, I don't know if anybody can sort of understand what I'm saying, but when you look at the buildings in Vegas, they look like they're made out of cardboard. When you look at the buildings in Washington, they look like they're made out of marble. But it was I'll just make sure no rumors get started. Tarlasi, I was not in a Pewds live stream that I know of. If anybody saw me in one of Pewds' video, let me know. Smithsonian museums are awesome, especially the art museum. That's Eric Cooley. Yeah, the museums are amazing. The city's amazing, and I'm going to probably do just one summary of that. But it was amazing. The FUCT, so we went to the Supreme Court, not to sit in on a hearing, although you could, but we just went there to visit and see it, and to shoot the content for the FUCT trademark dispute. That's another very interesting case. And what was the development that someone had pointed out after I posted the video? Oh, no, it was the subtlety between common law protection of trademark versus registration protection. And I pinned the comment to explain that there's a, do I want to ask what WWG1WGA stands for? Okay, no, I don't. There's an interesting distinction between common law protection of a trademark and registration trademark, and what benefits you get from registering a trademark. Because the issue in the FUCT case is that they have common law protection, which is local and not call it official, but it doesn't grant the same commercial rights and commercial protections that registering a trademark benefits you with. So well, how can I not read this comment? This is the Axe Clinic, best lawyer on YouTube, hands down. Hope you're all safe and sound from the floods. Yeah, we're safe and sound from the floods in Montreal, and thank you very much. So the FUCT trademark, that's going to be very interesting to follow, because I made my prediction as to whether or not they're going to be granted a trademark. There's the First Amendment free speech issue, and like I said in the video, there's an argument to say it's not a First Amendment issue because they are not being deprived of their right to use it or even benefit from common law protection over it. It's just the government saying we're not granting you federal protection over obscene and offensive and scandalous language. And if you imagine, if FUCT gets trademarked, I mean, it's only a matter of time before shite, S-H-I-T-E, I don't even know if that, I should probably look if that is trademarked, but it's only a question of time before all swear words are creatively spelt, and then you have literally swear words being advertised everywhere. I mean, it'll be interesting. Okay, thanks, Coach Sarkis. So the FUCT is going to be very interesting. I mean, I can't wait for that, because I'm going to do a follow-up on trademark law in general. But it's going to be cool. Now, what did we say we were going to do in this video? Let me go up to the top and hold on. I'm going to enlarge this just so I can refresh my memory. FUCT, Assange, Article 17, Washington. Okay, let's get to Smollett, and we've been rolling for, oh, there's 87 people watching. That's fantastic. Okay, let's take a moment just to ask everyone to go share again and see if we can get to 100. I don't know. Oh yeah, here, by the way, guys, this is my my fishing shirt, gift from my mother-in-law. Stay handsome, Dave. I'm just trying to sleep these days. It's life it doesn't get complicated, it just gets noisy with kids, dogs, and then you're on a week off, and with the kids at home, it is something to deal with. Okay, so let's see what we got here. Okay. This is Dick Bowen says, does Canada have think tanks like the DC ones? I don't know. I would imagine they have to, but I don't know from firsthand knowledge without looking it up. Yeah, fatherhood, the Axe Clinic. So what do we want to get to now? The Smollett case. The Smollett case is, from a legal perspective, it doesn't end. And there's so much that people can learn from it. Let me just make sure I'm at the bottom here so I can see. Deep Cycle Garage says, I want to trademark your favorite politician sucks. Oh, well, where or trade would that be associated with, I wonder? I don't think that would get refused. Your favorite politician sucks. I guarantee that, I'm not guaranteed. I would imagine that would get approved. There's nothing scandalous, offensive, or shocking about it. But like, FUCT, the way it's supposed to be spelled. Okay, last bit of thought on this. The determining factor as to why I think it's going to get refused is the Supreme Court justices can't even bring themselves to say it in the Supreme Court, and so that's an indication of where the threshold might be. There's the threshold for obscenity is I'll know it when I see it. When it comes to swear words, if it can't be said in the Supreme Court, maybe it can't be trademarked, but we'll see. Okay, let's get to the bottom of this here. Why can't I get to the bottom of the comments now? What have I done here? Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay. Smollett. Quick show and yes and why. Y and N. Who's up to speed on the Smollett situation? Let's wait. Let's wait for the yays or nays. Everyone has to be up to date on the Smollett, except I guess maybe people overseas who this might not be news for as much as for us. Okay, we got 1 Y, DA Slim, Scott West, yes. Jared P, yes. Michael Nazaro, yes. Dick Bowen says thanks. Any particular one you'd recommend? Okay, so that's a private conversation. Sierra's not up to speed. Sierra, the Smollett case is the Vlawg, VLAWG gift that, I mean, just keeps generating content, and not from an exploitive perspective, strictly from an actual amazing legal question perspective. It started off, everyone knows how it started off. Jussie Smollett filed a police claim to the effect that he was assaulted by 2 men wearing MAGA hats at 2 in the morning in Chicago during an Arctic blast or something. Chicago police did the investigation, determined that it was Smollett who staged the attack on himself using the help of 2 brothers, the Osundairo brothers. Jussie Smollett was indicted on having filed a false police report. Then the prosecuting attorney, or the attorney general for Illinois, dropped all the charges, like blindsided even the Chicago police, dropped all the charges. And that's where my legal intrigue peaked, because I didn't understand in law how the charges agree or disagree with someone pulled strings. I mean, there's not a question, but agree with or disagree with the favoritism. How is it even in law that there was a provision or a system in place that would even allow for that to happen? And so I did some research and I spoke with the U.S. attorney, and they explained to me that there's something called a pretrial diversion program. It is a different term in different jurisdictions, but the idea being, for first-time non-violent crimes and potentially non-violent felonies, you can find an alternative resolution to a criminal resolution. And then, that system makes a lot of sense, because a lot of people would say, like, for possessions of small amounts of marijuana, maybe a pretrial diversion program would be great. Instead of ruining someone's life for the rest of their life for that type of crime, maybe give them a one-off chance where they can, get a second chance to not have a criminal record for the rest of their lives. So that was the explanation, and I made a video on it. And the pretrial diversion program typically is offered to people who are first-time nonviolent felons. In the collective knowledge of the internet, a lot of people are saying, no, that agree or disagree with it. That's not even true, in fact, because apparently Jussie Smollett had been convicted of DUI, I believe, or he had a prior charge of DUIs 10 years ago. So it was not a first-time offense for him, which is interesting, and I don't know that and can't get into it. I just broke down what I could based on the knowledge that I have and had. And then the issue was also, after I made the original video, an internal memo got leaked, but it was sort of a part of an email. Nobody knows who wrote it, when, to whom it was written. But it was basically the prosecuting attorneys looking for precedent to let Jussie Smollett go under this program, to let him go scot-free. And then I made a follow-up video on that, because it's an interesting thing where, arguing from conclusions as opposed to towards them, where somebody wants to come to a certain conclusion, they're going to look for the evidence that allows them to do that. And I made an analogy in law. Judges oftentimes, judges oftentimes have, when they hear enough of a file, they've come to their conclusion, and they're now not necessarily, they're always open to new facts, but they're not necessarily going to change their mind. So right now, as of that point, they're sort of looking for the file for the facts that are going to justify the conclusion that they've already come to. The prosecuting attorneys came to the conclusion they were going to let Jussie Smollett go regardless. And they started looking for justifications. They were asking for precedent to let Jussie Smollett go. It was fascinating from an external perspective. They let Jussie Smollett go. And when Jussie Smollett has all the charges dropped against him, his file is expunged and sealed, which, another thing I had to ask a U.S. attorney is, how do they get the file, the criminal charges, expunged and sealed within 2 weeks? And, the answer from the attorney was, someone has to know someone. It's not illegal. It's not contrary to law, which illustrates, a concept of corruption. Corruption is not necessarily breaking the law. It's possibly just applying the law unequally to different people. And whether or not this qualifies as corruption is, we will all have our opinions on it, and I suspect most of us are going to agree. But this was not a question of breaking the law to let Jussie go free. This was a question of unequal application of the law, where any ordinary person off the street would not have gotten the treatment that Jussie Smollett did. 99.9% of the time with certainty. So Jussie Smollett has all the charges dropped. He has his file expunged and sealed, and he's free to go. After he goes free, he doesn't go quietly. He, through his lawyers, take to the offense and say that he was wrongfully charged. He was prosecuted by the Chicago police, and Smollett's lawyers go on to reassert that the Osundairo brothers were the ones who, in fact, perpetrated the crime against Jussie Smollett, which was a racist and homophobic crime. But they're not saying that they did it as a conspiracy together. They're saying they did it as a bona fide hate crime. And so what ends up happening is that the Osundairo brothers sue, not Smollett, but they sue Smollett's attorneys for defamation. So hold on one second. Okay, remember where I asked? I'm just going to see this. Ben Pratt says, can you do a video on legal conspiracies like the income tax never being fully ratified or legality of the Fed Reserve? That might be out of my pay grade, which anyone who's on YouTube knows is we have a very low pay grade on YouTube. Anyway, we'll see. Probably not, but I read all suggestions, but don't be offended if I don't take them. I would not be my mother's son, Jussie Smollett. Yeah, it was. So he came out, and this is Jeremy Anthony quoting Jussie Smollett with what he said in the press conference. I would not be my mother's son if I had done something like that. Anyway, and that brings me to other things about reading body language and reading witness testimony, and when a witness sort of appeals to certain types of arguments, what it generally indicates, but that's a whole other discussion. The Osundairo brothers sue Garagos and Grangian, I think is the name of the lawyers, sue them personally for defamation, which opens a whole new legal can of worms in terms of, can you sue a lawyer for defamation for things that they've said for and on behalf of their client? And it was an interesting vlog to make. The general rule is that you can't sue lawyers for defamation for representing their clients, because they are necessarily going to be relaying the position of their clients and not speaking their own. So that's the general rule. You know, you're going to be in front of a judge and you're going to be calling the other party a liar sometimes. You're going to be accusing them of having falsified reports, of having doctored in. You're going to be accusing the other party in an adversarial process of very bad things for and on behalf of your client, because you are relaying your client's position. Some of them are going to turn out to be false, and some of them, under the ordinary circumstances, if it's two people on the street, could be defamatory. But can you imagine living in a world where lawyers are sued for defamation every time they make false accusations against another party as relates to information provided to them by their client? You would have an end to the legal profession, which, you know, might be a good thing, but it would certainly be a bad thing, because then people would resolve their disagreements, outside of the court, so to speak. So suing the lawyers was very interesting. And it brought up this concept of absolute privilege, which is lawyers in the context of litigation or a file cannot be sued personally when they are just relaying the position of their clients. There's a gray zone when they start making comments pre-litigation, like there's no lawsuit yet. There's no lawsuit between there's no lawsuit between Smollett and the Osundairo brothers. So does absolute litigation privilege apply when there's no litigation? Generally speaking, when there's anticipated or imminent litigation, it applies. When there isn't, then you get into this thing called relative privilege, where, you know, if a lawyer starts making grandiose statements at a press conference about another party who are not yet or even remotely involved in a legal dispute, is it covered by litigation privilege? Maybe not. Then it becomes a question of whether or not it's in anticipation of litigation, which is sort of an attenuating circumstance to the exception of absolute privilege. And then you get into the other issue of, okay, let's just say there's litigation going on between people for tax fraud. And in that context of that litigation, a lawyer comes out and says the other guy has been sleeping around on his wife. Okay, well, there's litigation, but is that fact relevant to the dispute between the parties? Those are circumstances where there can be a lifting of the absolute privilege or a morphing into relative privilege. Was the accusation necessary or even relevant to the proceeding? And then there's the final one, which I talked about in the video, which was defamatory statements made against third parties. So it's not because two brothers are suing each other that they can start making defamatory statements about the sister who's not even involved in the dispute. So it's very interesting. And this I talked about all in the video, which is the second to last video I published, I think. Maybe it's the last video I published. No, second to last. But the interesting thing about it is, which I thought about subsequently, and it's good discussion for a, let me see this. Tyler C, did you hear about the letter the city of Chicago sent to Smollett asking for payment for all the money? Yeah, Chicago will be suing Smollett for the cost of the investigation, no doubt. And I'll read that lawsuit when it comes out without a question. The interesting thing that the Smollett case brings up is in litigation, there are parties represented by lawyers. Let's just say, take the quintessential example where there's no self-represented parties. It's very difficult for either party to dissociate the lawyer representing the other from the other party. And generally speaking, there's as much anger from one party towards the other lawyer as there is to the other party, and sometimes even more, because everything that's being done to someone in a file is being done by the lawyer and no longer by the party. And, you know, I've seen it in my practice a lot. Someone wants to know what I'm playing with. I just found a little doll. And now the question, going back to Article 17, would this, in theory, get restricted in the European Union in 2 years if Gunn says, "Whoa, that's my copyrighted material, trademark material, whatever"? 90 people. That's fantastic. Blind icon, blindicon. Thank you very much. Did we get to 100 yet? Okay, let's see if we can get to 100. Do we take a tweet second? 46 minutes. We got 14 minutes left. I said we'll keep it to an hour because I suspect most people's attention spans are similar to mine. Maybe mine is a little bit short. But Anthony Saint says I should look for a printing shirt in the printing in the States. I have an option in Montreal that I just haven't been able to get around to discuss yet with the guys at Custies who made my other shirt. Okay, sorry. Back to the thing about litigation. The party who is you know seeing an onslaught of proceedings, examinations, subpoenas. They're all coming from the opposing counsel, and it's very often the case that the party has as much, if not more, resentment and hatred towards the lawyer than they do towards the party, because everything that happens in a file that's bad is coming through the attorney. And when I look at the Osundairo brothers and Garagos and Grandjean and the things they've said, you know, the lawyer in me says that these are things that are obviously going to be said by two attorneys representing their client. If I'm the Osundairo brothers, you know, I know how I'm feeling also, because I've been the lawyer that people hate in a file because I'm just doing the things that a responsible lawyer representing his client vigorously has to do. And I know the dynamic. And it's something that's very difficult for people to appreciate when they are in the depths of litigation. That was my personal anecdote. It's the parties tend to end up hating the other lawyer, and it's totally understandable, but that doesn't and shouldn't and can't justify going after those lawyers personally when all that they're doing is loyally and faithfully representing their clients. Yeah, so, and Zoltan Boza says, you are not immune just because you're representing or represented. This is true, and we have the exceptions, you know, the relative privilege, and the other thing is, sometimes lawyers can go overboard. I mean, I have seen lawyers go overboard, and I've seen them go overboard in examinations, and DB, this is not free legal advice. This is not even legal advice. This is my life, an anecdote. What was the other thing that I was going to talk about? It had to do with the Smollets. Oh, well, so that's the other interesting legal question that comes up in the Osundairo brothers case is they're suing the lawyers for defamation because the lawyers are saying they did in fact perpetrate a racist and homophobic hate crime against Smollett. The Osundairo brothers themselves are admitted hoaxers. They are admitted to having participated in a conspiracy to fake a hate crime and a homophobic racist hate crime. And so when you come to things like defamation and damages to reputation, the question becomes, what are the damages to your reputation? And this was a question that was asked in the PewDiePie situation, where Vox and The Verge were calling him a white nationalist. And then the question is, you know, he's known as a gamer, but not as a white nationalist. And then you have the Osundairo brothers who, if this ever gets in front of the judge, expect opposing counsel to say these are admitted hoaxers to fake, they're admitted to fake racist and homophobic hate crimes. What's the actual damage from what they're even alleging that we said? And that's going to be an interesting legal question, because you have to quantify your damages in law all the time if you want to claim damages. We're only 4 people away from 100. What do I do? Do I get another dog in here? I'm not touching the other dog because she pooped in her bed this morning and her stomach has been grumbling, so I'm not going to lift her off the ground. So let's see what else we got here. Did Viva invent vlogs? Okay, the Axe Clinic. I didn't invent the term VLAWG. Someone jokingly mentioned it to me, and I don't remember who it is. And I would, for the life of me, I would love to remember who it was or have them remind me who it was, because it's genius. I am going to trademark it for, however, but it was like an accidental thing where I was doing law vlogs, and then someone jokingly said, "Put an AW in there," and it stuck. Okay, I'm Matt Curley. We treat ADHD naturally with fish oil. I'm definitely not a party to this conversation, but copyright Vlawg now. Well, I see. Right now, I have common law protection of Vlawg in a local jurisdiction. Whatever, we'll see. I copyrighted Viva Frei for internet, so maybe it's the next logical thing. And what else was I going to say? So the Smollett case is amazing because it really illustrates the nuances of the anger and how it's directed at the other parties in the context of litigation. Okay, who has questions? Should we do some questions? Can you claim pain and suffering? I mean, that's contextual, but yeah, pain and suffering is the most blanket catch-all header of damages, but it has to be proved. Let's see here. Vloggle. Where do babies come from? Tyler, I can field this one. I've seen it 3 times now, and it never gets old to see. It's the baby birthing process is straight out of a science fiction movie. It's amazing. Do I think Trudeau has a chance? That's a question of opinion, and it's political. But the situation in Quebec with Trudeau, and I did a video on Jesus, what's your name? It's oh gosh, our Attorney General, the former Attorney General. Raymond, I can't remember her name now. Anyways, I did a video on that. It was, it's an amazing thing when you have people investigating themselves. It's interesting. Let's see. Would you review Alan Russo's documentary film America, Freedom to Fascism? I've never seen it. These things, certain issues you can't deal with because they just they are polarizing issues, and I don't want to deliberately jump into polarizing issues, and I don't want to make it a practice to deal with polarizing issues. I just love dealing with I love dealing with what's going on in the news and then just breaking it down in law because it's so interesting. Can the FBI pick up the same charges against Smollett? DA Slim. So this is an interesting thing from what I understand, and I didn't talk about it in the videos because it was not yet in the news, but there were 2 charges brought against Smollett. One was what was the hate crime that turned out to be the hoax hate crime, which turned into the indictment for filing a false police report. The other was apparently he mailed either himself or someone an envelope with white powder. And the discussion in that file was that that's a federal issue, and the FBI can, in theory, go after Smollett for that because it's a federal jurisdiction when you mail things, apparently. So that is, I mean, no, it's not Stephanie Vallee. It's Jody Wilson. Okay. Oh, come on. Someone has to remember the name of I can't Google it right now. But that's the issue. So a mail crime is federal. So in theory, he can be prosecuted federally for the mail hoax, whereas the filing the police report was local to Chicago, Illinois. Jody Wilson Rebu, that's it. The world wants a job. Nick Bedard, I did a short one just explaining a bit of that situation and the issue with Trudeau and what happens when the Attorney General is both the Minister of Justice and the Attorney General, and what happens and what sort of corruption at that level looks like when there's strong suggestions that our Attorney General should heed to the political pressure of the Prime Minister, and when she doesn't, she's demoted. We did that. Should a lawyer from India immigrate to Canada? Pros and cons, if you could. I've never been to India, so I couldn't compare. And that type of question would also, could be, that could be a judgmental answer to that, because I don't, I'm born and raised in Canada, and I know that I love it here. I love fishing and I love the winter, so that's my stuff. Okay, Blind Icon says, concerning FUCT, can the Supreme Court deny trademark registration for a word that sounds offensive? Well, so this is the interesting thing. My understanding is it can be visual, or it can sound offensive, or it can look offensive. Like FUCT is pronounced F-U-C-K-E-D. That's how it's pronounced. F-C-U-K was not pronounced anything. It was just visually potentially offensive. So I think it's it's all things considered in terms of deciding whether or not it's scandalous. What's my favorite lawyer law movie? So Alex Altoff. I think my favorite law movie is a civil action with what's his name? John Travolta and Robert Duvall. The one I hated the most, when I was surprised how preposterous it was Runaway Jury. The most preposterous legal movie ever. Outlandish. What about FUCT? Well, so Nick, in Quebec, and this is I forgot to make this joke in the video. In Quebec, we have a word for seal, which is FUCT. P-H-O-Q-U-E. FUCT. And when we were in elementary school, the whole joke was we would say, fuck you. And I was just telling you to go seal yourself, because the French word for seal sounds like the F word in English. So I wonder if things might have been different if FUCT had purported that the pronunciation was FUCT. Or if someone tries to trademark FUCT, the seal, P-H-O-Q-U-E, and see what happens. Hey Viva, have you ever played Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney? Oil Garland, I have no idea what that is. I don't even know if that's a game, a movie, a role-playing game. So no, the answer is no. Okay, we're 56. How many people are we at? I can't see it. Did we crack 100? Doesn't really matter. It's just all trivial. But the best lawyer game. Well, I may have to look into that game. What else did I forget? I think we did pretty good this week. 88. That's good. That's first of all, that's fantastic, and it's fantastic that there's people here. It's good. It's wonderful to have an audience and to be able to actually reach people in a useful manner. Justice.gov has the legal language under obscenity. I don't know if they do things different at the USPTO. Dick Bowen. Yeah, I mean, we have the same issues here in Canada. They will not just grant a trademark to anything, and it's. Oh, then it's the same sort of thing with the license plates, the custom license plates. Same type of argument and same type of issues. Okay, I'm not answering some of those questions. In Montreal, English radio can't say the F word, but French radio can and does. Do you know why? I don't know if that's true. I know that I hear swear words on TV a lot more in Canada than in the US. Kids in the hall always got away with saying the F word, but no, I don't know. I just know that Canada is much more lax than the US. In terms of what goes on TV. Does getting a concentration matter when pursuing a law degree based, Marduk? You mean a specialized degree within law, Mark? Assuming that's what you mean, Marduk, based. No, I mean, it helps. At some point, you have to choose your own classes in law school, and you're better off choosing classes that you actually want to work in. I did one constitutional law class, and I did another Aboriginal law class. I mean, they were interesting things. I did them for culture and for personal knowledge, not because I wanted to practice in those fields. But Suzette Live Talk, thank you for all the hard work you put into your videos. This is Super Chat, people. I forgot to mention Super Chat. Hey, no, this is another way to support a channel. Thank you very much, Suzette Live Talk. Tell me, I haven't missed anybody who did Super Chat previous to this. I don't want to miss anybody, and I don't want to be rude, but Suzette Live Talk, thank you very much. Let's see, Phantom Faye, I haven't seen you in a while. Okay, awesome. Have you ever seen the TV show Bull? Nope, I have not seen it. KC Auto Doctor, different rules for USA TV. You can say more bad words on cable. This is for sure. Let's see here. Okay, it generally only applies to radio transmissions from my understanding. Dick Bowen. Can you literally sue the pants off somebody? DB, this is an interesting question. There's a financial way to sue someone's pants off where they have to literally sell their pants. That's a joke. In fact, under bankruptcy law, everyone should know you're allowed to retain, I think it's $6,000 worth of personal belongings and stuff that you use on a daily basis, diplomas. There's some other things there. Based Marduk, Based Marduk, thank you very much. Well, Scott West says, thanks for the live stream. You genuinely seem a fine person. Thank you very much. I absolutely do my best. And the wonderful thing about doing YouTube all the time is you sort of always assume that, you assume that someone's always watching you, and it makes people behave nicely, I think. Sarah Bellum says, I think the US has much stricter TV censorship laws in a lot of places. Yeah, I have no doubt. I mean, I know what happens in the U.S. if a swear word accidentally gets in because the delay didn't pick it up. It's fascinating. Why are you so passionate about Article 13, now Article 17, just asking other side of 40? It's an interesting question. I wasn't so concerned about it at the time because I thought everyone was blowing it out of proportion. And I think a lot of the concern might be a little bit, not exaggerated, but tempest in a teapot type thing. Like, we'll see what happens when it comes out. We have courts for a reason, and the courts will interpret what is the scope of the application of the article. I just think from a legal perspective, it raises interesting questions. And from, what do they call, like, not international law, but the national convention, from a convention perspective, it brings up interesting things that most people don't know about, that once the European Union passes this directive, there's still national law that has to be enacted to reflect it. So it's everything about it's interesting. Contemplating what might go wrong is interesting to a point, and then it just becomes sort of not an echo chamber, but maybe a panic chamber where everyone starts getting nervous about it being the end of the internet. And the other thing is, even if it is devastating on the internet is life, and life finds a way. People will find a way to freely communicate information. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Thoughts on the floods. I'm gonna have to go look at the floods. I mean, my wife is gonna know that I said this. I predicted that there were gonna be floods in the townships where we had floods 5 years ago, just because of the way the soil was not thawing as fast as the snow was, and there was so much snow this year. We'll see what's gonna happen. I'm gonna try to get out there if there is. My mother-in-law lives in this area that historically always gets flooded, and about 5 years ago it was flooded where I was literally kayaking through the streets. Okay, some comments I'm not reading here. Izo Mesmer says, I want to go fishing with you, David. Check out my kayak conspiracies. Okay, I'm going to have to see what qualifies as kayak conspiracies. And then Suzette Live Talk says, isn't it a fine line between interpreting law and legislating from the bench? That is, when the judicial system becomes politicized, that's the phenomenon that you see, and you could take it back the other way. Even if it's not the phenomenon that you see, when the world gets politicized, everyone looks at something and tries to interpret it from a political perspective. And so, in a world of hyper-partisan politics, everyone's going to look at judgments coming off the bench and read politics into them. Or when people on the bench are politicized, you're going to get political judgments, which are going to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Activism from the bench as opposed to interpreting the law. Fishing in a flooded area, this is a blind icon. It's not so good. One of my major phobias is getting electrocuted in a flooded area, because they don't always shut off the electricity in time, and you don't always know when the electricity has been shut off. So I always have this phobia of getting electrocuted. What do I think? Okay, this is Nick Windsor. What do I think will happen to Alex Jones? So I mentioned that in my video where I broke down the deposition. I made my prediction in terms of whether or not that qualifies as defamation, and we'll see what it turns out. There are, in that video, there are so many nuances as well in terms of the applicable standard as to what defamation is going to be, and we talked about that in the live stream 2 weeks ago. But when it comes to defamation, higher threshold for press, higher threshold for public figures, lower threshold for private figures. There's too many things to actually determine what's going to happen in that lawsuit. But I made my prediction. Go watch the video, and we'll see how it pans out. But it's not a prediction based on a wish. It's just a prediction based on an analysis of what I think the law is. Sarah Bellum says Sarah Bellum's got the Viva Frei icon. Sarah, nice to see you again. Everyone who doesn't get the joke, Sarah Bellum is a part of the brain. Most reporting these days seems to be purely sensationalism. I think that leads to a lot of panic around things like that may be relatively benign. I was just talking about this with somebody. Welcome, new member, Based Marduk. Awesome. This I take as the utmost of flattery, where after an hour of listening to me ramble, someone is still interested in what a lot of people are still interested in what I'm saying. Thank you very much. But hold on, sensational journalism. I'm not going to do a video on this because it's not law and it's just a matter of opinion. But on the subject, what is the word? Network news has not been value added to society as far as I'm concerned, and we're getting to a point where I think we can all appreciate that. In order for news to stay relevant, in order to keep dragging people in, it has to get more and more sensationalized. It has to make sensational stories out of non-sensational stories. It has to always have a breaking news banner, and it's got to get people nervous, and it's got to get people thinking they have to watch the news day in and day out. And look, and I'm not immune from it. It gets to me. But yes, news by and large today is sensationalized. It's sensationalized, or it's hyper partisan, and it's at some point people are going to get fed up. And I think we're sort of at that point now, if we're not well into it, where, you know, which is where I think this niche of what I'm doing on this channel comes in, is that people sort of are just dying for, like, I don't want to know about your politics. I just want to know about the situation. And that, I think, is, you know, maybe that's where the world needs to go. When I first started my channel, and you know, my tagline was always, you know, increasing the global pool of happiness. And I used to make just random feel-good videos. And maybe now I'm thinking, like, the way to actually contribute and be value added to this world is keep the politics to oneself. There's nothing wrong with being political or having an opinion, but try to explain things or understand things objectively, or without infusing them with hyper-partisan politics 24/7. Okay, 105. What do we say? We're going to call it quits? Let me see this, make sure that I haven't missed anything. Sierra says, Sierra LVX says, I'm a journalist student, and it makes me question what field I should get into. Like, first of all, everyone's a journalist, and some people who are not journalists are journalists, and some journalists are not journalists. It's a method of treating something, not a title. And so there will always be room for being a responsible journalist, regardless of what the medium is through which information is transmitted. Tyler C says, I watch your channel because law has always confused me, and you explain it so clearly and concisely that even a layman like me can understand. Thanks, Viva Frei. My pleasure. I sometimes miss some of the nuances, but you know, it's always the 80-20 rule, is you can go 80% into the 20% of details, confuse people more, bore people more, and actually not add anything more to the substance of the discussion. Okay, shall we wait till we hit 100? We're at 94. I don't think we're getting to 100 today, but it will be, it doesn't matter. What, the 94 people is fantastic, and everybody seems to be enjoying it. Did I forget anything? No. Okay, let's do it. Oh, one last thing, if you can, share my channel, just spread the word so that we can help making it grow. We had a great month, and I think it's because I like to say, I didn't find my niche found me, but you know, the dedicated law vlogs and then the occasional vlog on the weekend, I think, is the way to go. People seem to like it. I have another channel, by the way, it's called Viva Random, and that's where I just put up any silly thing that I don't want to put up on this channel because I don't want to bombard people with, you know, my dog doing something funny with my other dog. But Viva Random, if anybody wants to just, you know, keep up with silly random videos, that's where I'm posting stuff, just so that I don't bog down this channel and distract from the theme. But that's it. Thank you very much. Peace out. I'm going to put my thumb over the camera to indicate the end. Now I'm going to go to end broadcast. See you later, people. Peace out.